All right, hello and welcome back to this video in our moral relativism section and how to talk to someone who has bought into this idea that you got to make up your morality. And I want to talk to you in this video about what types of worldviews and religions would ascribe to moral relativism. And now we're not going to dig out all of these. So if some of these terms don't sound real familiar, you're welcome to look them up. You can put a comment in. We can go deeper into these. Okay, so let's go into this. So firstly, one of the worldviews, and I'm looking at some of my notes here, but one of the worldviews that is going to have this sort of all morals is okay as long as you believe it is going to be something like Unitarian Universalism. And this is, I mean, they have a church. It's churches of Unitarian Universalism. And basically, it's the idea that we're all unity, Unitarian, Universalism. There is a unity of all religions, and all religions are true, and we should embrace and support everything. And this is very closely related, but not quite the same as Baha'ism. Baha'ism is also what we might consider the most inclusive religion. And basically, the only thing not included within this religion is religions that are not inclusive. So you, as a believer in Christ, are not included. One of the people I sat under for a number of years learning apologetics went to a Baha'ist church. It's a very Eastern religion where they accept everybody. And he is a Christian, and he was asking some questions in regard to their inclusiveness. And he said, I only believe in, one God, and it's the God of the Bible. And, do you accept that? And they said, no, leave. So they try to be inclusive. And then, of course, they're not inclusive. But they would believe that morality is whatever you want it to be. So you can run into relativism there. And this is why we addressed relativism, because it addresses so many worldviews. You don't have to know every worldview. As long as you can sniff out the relativism, the moral relativism, you can start deconstructing that belief system with the training we just did. So moving on, some forms of Buddhism, some Jainism, some Taoism. Now, those, at least in the West, you're not going to run into as much, but Eastern religions broadly are going to have a little bit more relativism mixed in. And again, it kind of depends because there is a little bit of wiggle room in there. Now, one that you're definitely going to run into relativism with is New Age. And New Age is a very spiritual belief set that is itself, the way we would describe New Age is it's a salad bar religion. There isn't really any hard or fast rules in New Age. It's just whatever you want to believe, believe. If you want to be a little Hindu and a little Buddhist, do that. If you want to be a little Wicca and a little Christian, do that. If you want to be, whatever, you just make it up. Whatever you feel goes in New Age. And so clearly you have to have moral relativism to make that system work. So you can really start to work and get New Age believers into a position where they're really having to think about where they get their morality. This is also true of Wicca. And I would also say Satanism. Satanism, at least in one sense, in the more academic sense, there's a, how do I say this? There is a religious Satanism, and then there is more of a rational Satanism. So in the regard to the rational side of things, basically the belief is do whatever feels right to you. And that's interesting. That seems to be exactly what Satan would tell you. It's like, well, don't do bad things, but just do whatever feels right to you. And it's like, well, that's bad stuff. So, sometimes I just want to punch that guy in the face, and I know I shouldn't do that. So anyway, so you do have some relative morality within the rational side of Satanism. You have some relative morality within Wiccanism, which is witchcraft. And that's also very inclusive and accepting of other faiths and beliefs. Okay, so those are some religions. And I don't know if New Age is really a religion as much as it is a philosophy of life. I don't really know. But there are some religions that you're going to find relativism in. And you just argue it the same way every time. All the things we covered, you go watch this 5 times, you're going to be able to argue those just like a pro. So moving on from that, though, you have some philosophical positions that also are going to have moral relativism in there. Now, we've already talked about atheism. So whether you call that a philosophy or a religion, whatever, they don't believe in a God. But now they have morality. Well, where do you get it? Relatively. Because there is no God, they have to ground it in something. And we just start to decide where that is. So atheism is a morally relative system. Another one is a nihilism. Now, this is something we definitely have not touched on yet. Nihilism is the belief that basically everything is meaningless and worthless and hopeless. And also, life may actually just be a complete delusion. Like we may not even be here right now. We're just
The
delusional.
most intellectually honest of all of
Version of
them.
atheism. Yes, it is. Because right, and this is the logical conclusion of atheism and naturalism and physicalism, which is physicalism being the world is only the physical matter. There's no souls, there's no spirits, there's no God. Naturalism being everything came about the way that it is through natural processes, and atheism being there is no God. So, all of that kind of just different elements of atheism, usually. Well, the nihilist basically just takes it one step further and is like, well, what the heck is it all about anyway? You're telling me that I came from a puddle of slime and I am intrinsically worth nothing. And when I die, I'm going to cease to exist. Who cares? Do whatever you want. Like, just you're in the Matrix. Like, just go and be Neo, go and be the bad guys in the Matrix and just go do whatever you want. Shoot up a school. Like, it doesn't matter. So, like, that is the logical, rational conclusion to atheism. I mean, if you're really being honest, you don't have a ground for any of these things. So why not do whatever you want? And also, it's totally meaningless. So make up your morality. So that's nihilism. And frankly, when you kind of listen to a lot of these really unhinged people who are doing public shootings and mass shootings, they kind of embody this sort of approach. They actually believe some of these ideas. So anyway, I mean, you can look at that with also in terms of an atheistic bent with the USSR. I'm getting off topic a little bit here, but when you look at these highly socialistic and highly communistic top-down societies in the 1900s, they're very atheistic in nature, oftentimes. And so why is that correlated there? Well, because there are no morals on atheism. You don't actually ground it anywhere, so you can really justify whatever you want. So some people would disagree with that, but I think from a Christian perspective, that's pretty solid. Anyway, and then postmodernism, which we've talked about a little bit, which is the evolution of philosophy. This is sort of a worldview where we get identity politics, this, diversity, equity, inclusion, woke ideology, these types of things. Postmodernism is the idea that there is no truth. So, of course, you have relative morality in here. And, when you look at things like the intersectional flag isn't even consistent with itself. You have a feminism stripe, but you also have a transgender stripe. And the feminists, if you talk to feminists, they would disagree with the transgender stripe. Why? Because we just did all this fighting to get equal rights. And now you're saying we're men. Why did we need the rights to begin with if a woman isn't even a thing? At that point, what even is it? So when you get into postmodernism and you're just a full rejection of truth and of reality, then what do? You have to make up truth. You have to make up morality. You have to do these types of things. So another position, and again, you're welcome to look any of these up if you want. If you want more videos on this, let us know in the comments. But secular humanism. Okay, so secular just means non-Christian. Humanism is very commonly the base approach in a lot of psychological literature. And humanism is the idea that people are basically good. People are basically good. And, if people were raised right and if the systems were good, then people would be good. Because, and this is untrue to a Christian worldview where people are basically sinful or fallen. That doesn't mean we're totally evil. Like, do I think people have good in them? Sure. Do they also have a fallen nature and we are prone to make a lot of moral mistakes? Yeah, sure, of course. Well, humanism says that's not true. They say people are basically good, not basically fallen. So that is untrue from a biblical perspective. But where do you get morality from this secular people are good? We don't believe in God. where does the goodness of the human come from, for starters? And then how do we define whether humans are doing good or evil? Well, I don't know. You just have to make up the morality now, I guess. So all of these are different worldviews and religions where you can see um, moral relativism. And as you get further along in your apologetics journey, as you start talking to people, you'll be able to sort of have a list like this in your mind. And as they start talking, they go, well, yeah, I think you just kind of, whatever is true for you is true for you. And, some people believe this is moral and others, it's fine. You could pretty much put your thumb on two or three of these, maybe even one. A lot of times I'll be talking to people and I'll just be like, this person is either Wicca or New Age. Like maybe merging into an Eastern religion like Buddhism or something, maybe. But you can pretty much start diagnosing these sorts of positions just because you hear the way in which they talk about the relativism. If it's more of a spiritually aspect, you're probably moving to New Age or Wicca or some kind of Eastern religion. But if they're talking in a very intellectual manner, you're probably moving into some sort of intellectual atheism sort of direction. If they're talking in a really philosophically manner, they may be trying to go for more of a postmodernism or a humanism approach. And then you already know, firstly, how to debunk the relativism. But if you then also have sort of at least a basic concept for each of these positions, you know how to quickly debunk some of those positions as well. And it's the same idea with broader philosophical positions. You just know how to get them to shift position and then show them they shifted because the position's actually false. And why do we keep shifting here? You seem like you're moving a lot. Why am I not moving at all? And so these are kind of some of the positions we can take, people can take when doing moral relativism. And hopefully you're kind of seeing some of the strategy with the conversation as we talk to people about moral relativism. Zach, do you have anything you want to add? In this video, we talked about the number of positions that number of religious and philosophical positions that adopt moral relativism.
I don't think so. I think that what you're laying out there, the groundwork for, I like what you said there. It seems like you're moving a lot. Why have I not moved?
Yeah.
Is the correct frame of reference to have there. Your goal is to stand still and let them do all the crazy fancy footwork, leaping around you.
Yep.
And at some point you're just like, dude, you're jumping all over the place.
You look
What's
tired.
you look tired?
Looks
You've
real tiring.
you've
What? I
you
got a
had
God.
a
I got God over here, man, and yeah, I just do this, like yeah,
yep,
it's kind of
yeah.
a judo. You use their motion against them, so it actually works against them to continue to have to justify and remove and re-justify their position. So anyway, but I will end it with this. I love understanding moral relativism because it's kind of like a hack. You get 90%, 80% of the apologetic ability. You can now have a really good foothold to reason with someone in like 10 different religious or philosophical positions, and you don't even have to know anything about those positions. I encourage you to know about them, but you don't have to. So love it because it's so applicable. Thanks so much for being with us in this video. We'll see you in the next one. God bless.